Hey, this is Connor with CongruentX, and today we're going to be talking about creating forms. So I said this in our last video, but it's always good practice when you're making customizations to your system to do it in a solution. And I'll just briefly glance over that again. For example, if we were to just go straight to the entities, straight to the account, and add a view here. So if we were to add a view right here or add a form right here, it's going to add it to the default solution. Which is not usually what we advise to do. We usually advise to make changes in solutions. That way you can keep track of where things are, they're easy to remove, and then you can push them to production. So I've created a solution here, creating new forms. Let's go ahead and add our entity. Let's focus on the contact entity today. So we're going to add the entity. Do not add any components. All we want in this solution is the form. We don't want any other pre-existing components. We just want to add a form. So go ahead and select contact. And you can see under fields, relationships, views, forms, we have nothing. So let's go ahead and add a form. Let's create a main form. If you're curious what the other types of forms are, we can go over that in some future videos. All right, so you can see we just started with the default setting here, this default kind of form for the contact entity. So let's say we want to clean it up a little bit. We don't need all this information. Let's maybe say, let's get rid of a bunch of this address information. There we go. We just click on delete it. Let's go ahead and get rid of this map section. We can keep the timeline. Not immediately sure what this control is. Oh, it's the assistant. Okay. So this is the assistant control. We can keep that in there. Maybe we can move them. Let's move them below the, or maybe above the timeline. That would probably be better. There we go. Get rid of this section. Go ahead and hide this section. We can show the account. I think that makes sense. Email, business phone, mobile phone, fax, not relevant really. Preferred method of contact. There we go. Details. Here's a new tab. Let's say maybe we want to get rid of this shipping section. We don't need it. Billing. We'll keep that separate. We'll get rid of that. Let's go ahead and hide that section. We can keep the contact preferences. I think that's usually pretty good to keep in there. Let's maybe add a tab for addresses. So what we're going to do is go to components. Let's do a 2-column tab. We'll do address 1, address 2. So let's do this. Let's name these address 1 and address 2. And then let's go to fields to add the fields. And we can sort them. So let's go city, state, street 1. Move that up. Zip code. And see, we can add address 1 name, because typically if you're using multiple addresses, you're gonna name them something. Actually, let's get rid of this title. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Let's hide that label. So let's do the same thing with address 2. Address 2. Let's go name, street 1, city, state, zip code. Awesome. And let's hide the label on that one too. All right, save. We're going to save and publish. All right, so there's going to be 2 things that determine if your form shows up for a user. A, is it added to your model-driven app? So if we look at our model-driven app here, under contacts, we have all forms selected. So If we don't have all, we're gonna have to make sure we select that form. The second piece to the puzzle is the actual security of the form. So one thing you can do is go to form settings, and there's two options. You can either have this form be visible to everybody, or you can have it visible for specific roles. And this is kind of a good way to say, hey, I want my sales guys to see this form. I want my customer service reps to see this form. And that way you can kind of show the data in context. And that's something we're really huge about it at CongruentX. Let's go and publish that. And so since we both have, we personally have the security role that this form is assigned to, let's go ahead and just move it to everybody, save and publish. And since it's included in the app designer, we're gonna see this show up. So if we go to select, simplified contact, and then now we're gonna see our form that we just added. We have the summary section, we have the details section, and we have our addresses. And then this related tab is always gonna be there. You can control which entities pop up here, which we'll go over, I assume, in a new video. And I think maybe the last thing you might be wondering is the ordering of the forms. How do we know which form is gonna come first? And that actually is gonna go back to our form settings. And so if you go to form order, you can see simplified contact is at the bottom. So if we just move that to the top, we're basically setting that as our default form. Wait for that to save. Let's refresh. And now we can see that simplified contact. Okay, so it does not set the default form. So let me say that again. So this is different than setting the default form, but this will set the order of the forms that you see. So now you can see simplified contact is right at the top. I think maybe one last thing to point out here is once you select a form, the system will stick with that form as you move on. So you can see we've got the simplified contact form here. If I go and select a different contact, it's going to stick with that form. And if I select contact, the default form, let's go to a different contact, pulls up contact. So it'll kind of stay with you. So I think that's all we're going to cover for today. As always, feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Thanks for watching.